Good to go? Yeah. All right. Call this meeting back to order. We are back from lunch. A little bit lethargic, but we'll try and push through now. We left at tab L, commissioners. Looks like Commissioner Shanefield has stepped out as well for the time being. But tab L is ratification comments on the IIJA Grid Resilience Grant Program. Commissioner Toman.
It's a comment letter that was submitted by the Coalition of Local Governments on our behalf. It is, they're commenting on the grant program that would allow special grants to utility companies to replace equipment. Not major equipment, but minor. So I would make a motion to ratify those comments, I guess, in the interest of time.
So I have a motion to ratify the comments as presented by Commissioner Tillman, second by Commissioner Richards. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous 4-0. Next is tab M, ratify draft comments on the RMP's application to convert Bridger units 1 and 2 to natural gas. Commissioner Tillman.
I'd make a motion to ratify those comments.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Tillman to ratify, second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous 4-0. Next up, commissioners, is tab N, the approval of the Wyoming County Commissioner Association's counties MOU and Greater Sage Grouse Coordination Letter, which we tabled at our last meeting on February 7th. If we are ready to deal with this, I would entertain a motion to untable.
Well, I'd make a motion to untable it.
Second.
Got a motion to remove the MOU and coordination letter from the table by Commissioner Tillman, second by Commissioner Richards. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And now up for approval or discussion is the MOU and coordination letter. What's your pleasure, commissioners?
Oh, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman.
my position hasn't changed, even though I was lobbied heavily by the WCCA lawyer while I was in DC. Jeremiah Riemann did respond to our email that I sent him asking him about the two items that we were concerned about, which was the gag order and the time limit on it. They offered no changes to the agreement. I just feel at this time, I just don't feel that it is something we should enter into. I think that we can totally coordinate with them. We have a 10, 12-year history of working on this issue. There are counties who desperately need to have help to form their comments. Basically, the comments, the BLM has already got a draft out. So it's not like a matter of starting over drafting the comments. It's just a matter of reviewing 16 major studies. So for that reason, I cannot tell you that I think that we should join this at this time. That's my position.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any other thoughts, comments, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I read both Micah and Jeremiah's response to our concerns. And I would maybe appreciate Mr. De Leon's opinion on this, but it's one thing to say, oh, this is what we meant, and we wouldn't hold you to a standard, but it's another to put language in a contract that restricts your ability to make your own comments in the future. And I think that's exactly what this contract does. I'm okay with the time limit. I think I understand the time limit on it, and I'm okay with their explanation on it, but I am not okay with their explanation on what I think is a gag order. Also, we as a board, we kind of give Commissioner Toman the responsibility to be involved in this process. And I feel like if we're going to put that responsibility on her like we have, that we should at least in something like this follow her lead in how we coordinate with other entities to make our comments.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Slaughter, any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have the same feelings. In researching this yesterday, I go back to our discussions about our liaison ships. And, it was obvious to each of us that Commissioner Tolman was the right person to continue in that liaison position with our public lands initiatives. And I think, as Commissioner Richards stated very well, that if we're going to have her in that position, that we need to support her. And I had that conversation with her just a few minutes ago. I think, I think once again, if we're going to place that burden on her to be our liaison and use the benefit of her experience the last several years, we should follow her lead. So that was where I would kind of lean with this also.
Okay, I certainly respect Commissioner Tillman's work and her opinion and stance on this. She's very involved with the CLG matters, and I understand that she feels like a lot of this work has already been done. So by no means is that any discredit. I personally feel as though that's a pretty small investment for a larger impact with 18 plus counties involvement on it. I understand the kind of double whammy approach, if you will, when it comes to a lot of this work already being done by the CLG. I just think a $1,200 investment over 2 years can't hurt. It seems like, when you get the response from Micah and Jeremiah, that they argue that they're kind of different specialties in a sense of representation and that they can work collaboratively with the CLG. So I kind of have a different spin on it. I am in support of it, but ultimately it's up to us as a whole body to make that choice. So if there's no further discussion on it,
Could I add a couple of other items?
Commissioner Tillman.
I felt conflicted because we would be submitting comments under 2 separate coalitions to the BLM. Maybe it's not a big deal, but I don't think it's right. Also, we are submitting requests for grants through the governor's FNRPA thing under 2 different separate coalitions. They say it's not an issue. To me, it is an issue because the legislation said that you will apply through one governing entity. Lincoln and Sweetwater and Uinta were all named in the MOU and on the map before any of us, before we agreed on December 6th. I have a problem with that process, with that happening without our approval. And we're still listed on there. So really, how many of the 18 have actually accepted it? I don't feel confident about the process that they're using. Also, I feel like we're going back to step 1 as far as working with a lot of counties who have not had the experience of working through the BLM NEPA process. And I'm not saying I'm not going to be willing. We will totally coordinate and share comments through the CLG and them. We've already agreed through the coalition to share our comments with them and work with them. I just don't see the need to be tied to them in an MOU is my position. And for that reason, I'd make a motion that we not join that coalition and that we repeal the motion of December 6th to join. I don't know, would that be in 2 motions or 1?
I think you probably want to separate them, focus on this MOU, and in the event that it fails, then we'll go back and rescind the original motion from the 6th. Is that appropriate, John?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just you would frame the motion in a positive sense. So
Sure.
if you want to take a vote, you can
Okay.
certainly move to.
I make a motion to approve the WCCA Greater Sagegrass MOU.
We do have a motion to approve the WCCA counties MOU and Greater Sage Grouse Coordination Letter by Commissioner Tillman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. We'll go ahead and roll call this one. And since I always start on Island side, we'll start with you, Commissioner Slaughter.
Mr. Chairman, if I can get clarification.
Sure.
I thought that Mary spoke against the MOU, but now she is actually making a motion.
So
Yeah,
we
it's
should
just-
vote against. So you would have the option to make,
So
State it
you're
in a
bringing it
positive
forward
state,
so that we
yeah.
can do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Nay.
nay.
I'm a yes, yay. Commissioner Richards. Is that a nay?
Nay.
Okay. Motion fails 3-1. And so with that, we will need to go back, commissioners, on December 6th. The previous administration had passed a motion to move forward with this process. So I would entertain a motion to rescind that action from the December 6th meeting.
And I'd be happy to make that motion since I was present at that December 6th meeting.
Do you have a motion to rescind by Commissioner Toman? Do we have a second?
Chairman, I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. I'm a nay. Motion passes.
Special thanks to my fellow commissioners. I appreciate the support.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner
should we
Richards.
Start yelling at each other now.
It's good to be diverse. No problem. We'll continue to march forward. Tab O is next, commissioners. This is kind of Commissioner Shanefeld's area, which is the amended Sweetwater County 2023 Specific Purpose Tax Joint Powers Board agreement. I believe she's coming back. Does anyone know? Okay. Well, let's jump out of order if we can and an attempt to save that for Commissioner Shanefeld, who's been working on that. And we will pause with tab O, move on to tab P, which are the board appointments. First up, we have the Solid Waste Disposal District Number 1 board. We do have an expiring term for, I believe it was Chris Meets, who was not interested in reappointment. So the applicants on file over the last couple of years: Charlotte Doak, Sheldon Beard, Lars Nandrup. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? I will state that I did reach out to a couple of the existing board members. After reviewing some of the applications, I spoke with Rick Kozad and Celeste Black in regards to their board and if they had any knowledge or working relationships with any of these individuals, and the recommendation was Lars Nandrup. So that would be my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I would move that we appoint Lars Nandrup to the Solid Waste Disposal District Number 1 RS Board to the expiring term of Chris Meets.
Got a motion to approve Lars Nandrup. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter, original motion by Commissioner Richards. Any further discussion?
Is he from Sweetwater County?
Yeah, I believe it was Green River.
Texas, maybe.
Nope, Rock Springs.
Just check.
Let's check. Yes, check. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we have the Southwest Counseling Board. I'll pull up my notes here. First issue we need to address on this, as you might recall from our last meeting, commissioners, we had an issue with the staggering of the terms. And so currently we have one term that will be up in 2023, 4 that will be up in 2025, and 2 in 2026. So we would like to get those more in line where you don't have a large majority like that changing over in 2025. So we've got resignations from Jackie Grubb, whose term is one of those that expired in 2025. And then Tom Jarvie tendered his resignation last week, a week ago today. His term is the one that's ending in July of 2023. So I would like to change Jackie's term to expire the same as Tom's. So both of these appointments would expire July 1st of 2023. And then at that point, assuming they still want to hang on, we could reappoint them for their first 4-year term, and that will help with the staggering of the terms. If that makes sense to you all. And with that, I did reach out trying to get some interest on this appointment. It's a very difficult board, as you all know. With Tom's resignation a week ago. My recommendation would be just to appoint one for now, while I can continue to sort through some of these candidates and perform some interviews if necessary. And my recommendation would be to appoint Rich Fisher to fill the unexpired term of Jackie Grubb with the expiring term July 1st, 2023, as I just mentioned, if you are all amenable to that.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
I would second it.
Take it you guys are tired of me talking.
No, it was just a lot easier that way.
And that would go to this summer and then it would be up for reappointment.
Yeah,
Okay.
since it's an unexpired term. So we do have a motion to approve
Wait.
Rich Fisher.
So this would carry the appointment through 7/1/25.
Nope. So currently that's how it's written. But the problem with that is when they go through 2025, we have 4 terms that are up.
Okay.
So we would limit this, change it back to 2023. That way, by the time this comes up, we would have 2 that are expiring in 2023, 3 that are in 2025, and 2 in 2026.
Thank you for
So
the
just fixes the
clarification.
staggering on them. I don't know how they get off, but sometimes they do. And so,
Mr. Chairman, if you would like me to clarify the motion, I would be glad to, but
no, we're good. We got a
Okay.
motion to approve Rich Fisher to the Southwest Counseling Board by Commissioner Slaughter, I believe a second by Commissioner Tillman. Pretty
Yes.
evident. No one wants any further discussion. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, there's a lot to take in. Tab Q is the budget and audit schedules discussion. You have Bonnie here again. Welcome back.
Thank you, Chairman. You should have received some information in your packet. I did want to start off by answering Rob's question that he had this morning that I did not know the answer to. I have emailed all of you. I hope you received my email. But just for the public, I would like to share that amount. The general reserve balance is 23,118,246, and that's all after all of the budget amendments that have been approved so far, taking money out of the general reserve. And that's just the general reserve. That's not our total reserves.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can add a follow-up question then, and I should have asked this earlier, probably Bonnie, but does that, with taking that into consideration, is the ARPA money, which is currently outstanding in reserve, still at $5.5 million, or has that decreased also?
It is budgeted for that amount.
Okay.
I don't know that we will spend it down to that amount
Okay,
because that's the budget.
that was the reserve
that's what
amount
we-
at the end of the year.
That was the reserve amount for how much we had budgeted to spend this current fiscal year. And I don't know that we will spend the 2-point-something million this current fiscal year. So that's the lowest
Okay.
it'll go, assuming everything that has been budgeted so far is spent.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So that's where we are on that. Okay, and if you have any more questions, feel free to ask me, preferably when I'm in front of my computer, so I can look that up. But you're welcome to ask me in a public meeting as well, and I can always get back to you.
Well, yes, if I may.
Commissioner Tillman.
But the PILT, that's all in a different pot then, right? All that PILT funding and the PILT ARPA and.
Yes. The PIL ARPA is different. It does not come with the same restrictions
Right.
as the normal ARPA funding. We did collect over 2 million more than I had budgeted for. I budgeted very conservatively on that. We knew we were going to get 2 installments 2 years in a row, but we had no idea how much it was going to be. We did know we were going to get half in 1 year and half the next year. We knew that the allocation was quite a bit higher than what the total amount in PILT is budgeted by the federal government every year, but we knew the distribution was going to be different. Generally, we receive about between 3.4 and 3.5 million each year for just our normal PILT. So I anticipated our total PILT disbursement between the 2 years would be higher than that 3.4. I did estimate very conservatively and estimated a total of 3 million for the 2 years. So I only budgeted 1.5 million and we ended up getting over 3.5 million this year. So we'll get another over 3.5 million next year
Then we
too.
got the second PILT, which is about the same. right?
We will, you mean the ARPA PILT or the normal
ARPA
PILT?
PILT.
The ARPA PILT, we just got the first amount this year and we will get that same amount next year. So now I'll know how much to budget for next year. I had no idea how much to budget for last year for that because we had no idea what the amount was going to be.
So the two pills together in 2 years, we got about 16 million.
Eight,
Four.
probably a little bit less. I think the first one was 8.2, around 8.2, maybe a little over 8.2. And then this one was it was over 3.5 for the two.
Yeah.
So probably a little less than that, a tiny bit less than that.
Okay. I just wanted to point it out to the new commissioners that there is that, and we haven't spent that, have we?
We are budgeting to spend it on some salaries this year. So actually it'll,
For the sheriff's department and law
yes,
enforcement.
yes,
Yeah, salaries.
exactly.
Mhm.
So that'll actually help a lot with our cash carryover. The reason we have to, so how it works is that's federal money. So you have to associate expenditures with that
Right.
federal money, just like you do with the normal ARPA, but the normal ARPA is a little bit more restrictive. So, yes, it was decided that money by the commission, it was decided that money would go for salaries, and then that gives the auditors expenditures to test to make sure we're in compliance. And that's the exact same way we do it with the normal PILT money as well. Salaries are used for that, obviously different salaries, because you can't use the same expenditures for different federal funding. But that's why we associate that, because we're required, when you receive federal funding, you're required to have expenditures that you use that use that federal funding. That way the auditors can test to make sure you're in compliance, because our audit is not only a financial audit, it's also a compliance audit on the grants to make sure you're in compliance with those federal grants.
To offset that, then it frees up monies for other things for the commission without saying what or where or when, but.
Yeah, so we are going to have a
Mhm.
nice big cash carryover this year, which is better than a little one. All right, does that answer all the questions?
Thank you.
Kind of got into some other things there,
Thank
but
you.
hopefully that answers everything. And if you think of any more, please let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. All right, I wanted to throw that out there before I forgot to mention that. Okay, the first item in your packet that I included was the budget schedule for this upcoming budget. I did throw some dates out there. These dates, most of them can be changed if you would like them to be. A couple of the dates that are driving this are set by state statute. So on or before May 15th by state statute, the budget requests are required to be filed with the commission. So that's why I have that at the May 2nd Board of County Commissioners meeting. I do that at a Board of County Commissioners meeting. So I usually do that the first meeting in May. So that's why I have that date on there. And then also another date, and we do this before it's required. It's on or before the third Monday in July. We have to approve. Well, we have to have the public hearing on or before the third Monday in July, and then the budget has to be approved by resolution either that day or the following day. So we actually have been doing that since they changed the statute. It used to, by statute, have to be on that third Monday in July, but they have changed it to be on or before that date. So we have been doing it since they changed that. This may sound a little confusing. Just I'll say it this way: the Thursday after the second Board of County Commissioner meeting in June. So it's the Thursday following the third Tuesday in June is when we've been doing it, which has worked well. That has to be advertised a week in advance. So with the newspaper coming out on a Thursday, it works so that we get that advertisement in on the Thursday, and then we have the public hearing a week later on a Thursday. And then we also just adopt it that same night is how
It was June what?
June 22nd. But if that does not work for this board, we can change that date. So that was one of my questions. If that, I don't know if you noticed on the meeting request form, I included a bunch of things I wanted to discuss and nail down so we can get a better calendar. So that I can get this out to everyone so we can be organized this year and everyone's on the same page and people aren't confused. So
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Slaughter.
If I could, Bonnie, just for my clarification. So if we chose to, we could move that public hearing back to the second, or actually it would be to the Thursday after our second meeting in May. If we wanted, or excuse me, in July, excuse me, rather than May. And we would still meet that
No,
compliance.
you would have to have the public hearing on or before the third Monday
Right.
in July. So
the
it couldn't be the
second- Second
Thursday.
Thursday would be before the third.
Oh, the
one.
second Thursday. I thought you meant after the second meeting Thursday. No, yes, we could. The only,
Would just give us more time if we chose to do that would be the only.
you could, just to point out a potential problem with that is, if the budgets aren't approved, I can't post them in the system, so people can't spend money. And, our payroll is done the second business day of the month, so we really wouldn't have an approved budget by the time that we do payroll, and that's the June payroll. So the month before's payroll is paid out on the second business day of the month. So there would not be a budget for that payroll, and there would be no budget for people to spend money at that
And that's
point
the
in
reason it
time.
makes sense to do this. So
And that is why we've moved it ahead of time, ahead of the end of the year.
thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions, or do we want to get back to, does that date work, or do we want to change that date?
I think we can make it work. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but if that's kind of been the common practice, I think it makes sense to try and shoot for that to make everyone's life easier.
I would say if it's worked in the past and it gives us the time to be able to make those appropriations for our budget in the subsequent tax year, that it would make sense to do that. So
Okay, and everyone is free that day, has time on their calendar to do it that day?
Not free, but fairly cheap.
Everyone is available?
we need to decide what time we're.
Yes, we do. That was something I highlighted in there. Last year, we did it in the morning. I believe it was around 9 a.m. Historically, we've done it in the evening and the reason being was, the commission felt that more of the public would be able to attend if we did it in the evening. I'm open to any time, whatever time you are available, not free, works for me. But we can do that morning, evening, anytime you want. I just wanted to get a time so we can get this calendar done and out to people so people can save the time and date on their calendars for this. I think there was some confusion last year because on the schedule, I had a different time than when it actually was. Of course, it was advertised for the appropriate time, but it was different. So I think there was a little bit of confusion last year over changing it at the last minute.
Mr. Chairman, I think June 22nd at 9 a.m. would work well for me.
Good here.
I can make that work.
Okay, 9 a.m. Sounds great. All right, budget workshops, when do you want to have those? We've done them after the commissioner meetings. We changed that last year and didn't do them after the commissioner meetings. It made for a pretty long day. Last year we had them on Mondays. I think the first and third Monday of the month from 4 to 5:30. That is completely up to you as commissioners, when you want to have those budget workshops, how many you want to have, what you want to discuss at those budget workshops. So let me know what are you thinking as far as dates, times, days of the week?
Personally, I mean, I understand it can make for a super long day, but my preference would be to go after our regular scheduled meetings. I don't want to be here till midnight by any means, but assuming things kind of slow down and we're not meeting until 3 o'clock every meeting, if we can knock it out in the afternoon, I think that might be beneficial since we're all typically here anyway. What's everyone else's
Chairman,
thoughts?
as long as somebody feeds me lunch, I'm good for the rest of the day.
Okay.
Yeah, well, mind you, 2 years ago, we never got to have lunch, so it was rather grueling. But with lunch, we might be able to do it. I would just recommend, Mr. Chairman, that we also start calling those groups in sooner, especially any of them that get over $250,000 from us. even though they might not have a final budget, to give us a heads up and to come in and kind of do a report to us about what they're anticipating, so we don't have them all pile up on top of us at the end. We kind of did that last year with some of them, I think.
Last year, what we did was, we met with the elected officials first.
Yeah,
And
I
we
think
did
that
meet
worked.
with them prior to the budget information coming out, which seemed to be really confusing for a lot of them because they didn't have budgets. So we met with the elected officials first. Second, we met with the department heads. And then after that, it was kind of very random who we met with. And I didn't know if that was what Lauren, I was going to ask Lauren what she was implying by saying it didn't flow well at the last meeting. I wasn't quite sure what she meant by that. But yes, it was very, very random. So that's how we did it last year. In the
But
past,
feedback, excuse me.
sorry, go
I
ahead.
mean, you interrupted.
No, go ahead.
The feedback that I got from elected officials and department heads that they like to be able to do it earlier, even though they didn't have actual numbers, that they could give us a heads up and not have to be stressing at the last hour. I don't know. We could check with them maybe.
We could if you want.
So
I'm sorry.
just a thought here. If we're gonna do it after the meeting, your first one could be the afternoon or after our meeting on May 2nd. Just a suggestion with elected officials.
March
I don't
2nd.
know if there's enough time to do elected officials and department heads. That might be pushing it a little bit. But you could do the second workshop with either one of those after our second meeting. There are 5 weeks in May. And so it might be wise to schedule another one for the outside agencies and component units, maybe. Kind of do them threefold, or how do you typically?
Are you wanting to meet with everyone? That was another
Mr.
question. we had.
Chairman,
Do you want to meet with everyone or just some?
Commissioner Slaughter, go ahead.
In my experience or in my belief, it would benefit us to start earlier with the entities that are receiving more funding. Typically, those are the areas where we are going to see bigger appropriations. And so I would like to see us start with, Bonnie could, if she could isolate for us, the 5 or 6 or 7 highest appropriations that we will have by department and look at those potentially first. And I would think starting earlier than May would be beneficial. I would think maybe starting in April. And once again, I would defer to Bonnie, having done this, you would have a much better idea how much time it's going to take. Obviously it's a big process, but I would hate to start in May and find out that we should have started a couple of weeks earlier. Do you feel like that would be soon enough if we were to start in May and begin the process then?
I think it's plenty early.
Okay.
Personally, I would love to just hash this all out in a week because the longer the process takes, the more changes there are. And I feel like everyone just gets confused because like, wait a minute, wasn't it this? Well, it was 3 weeks ago and then it changed to this and then it changed to this. There's just a lot of changes. And really early, we don't have really good revenue projections. We're actually not going to have good revenue projections at all this year because of Senate File 60. It's just going to be a guess, but at least we'll see where we're coming in monthly. We'll see more where we're coming in monthly. That's how I'm going to project the changes with Senate File 60 because we're not going to know what the production or price is going to be this November when we approve the budget in
Thank you.
June.
Thank you, legislature.
Yes, thank you. So just for the commissioners that aren't aware of this, we used to, Rob is very familiar with this. We used to know exactly how much we were going to bill about the time we were finalizing the budget. Those numbers would change a little bit. And it was, we didn't quite have the final numbers by the time we approved the budget, but we knew with both the minerals and the normal property taxes, what we were going to bill. And we based our budget on that, what we were going to bill. And we assumed we would collect right around what we were going to bill. You have some delinquent, but then you're collecting some delinquent from the previous year also. So we had a pretty good idea of our revenue numbers. Then you have the Southland bankruptcy and they don't pay and then that throws you all off. And then you're really short one year and really over the next year. But now with Senate File 60, the minerals, we're collecting those on a monthly basis. So we're just a couple months behind because the state now bills them. And then the state collects the money, then the state sends all the money they collect in each month to us once a month. So we're collecting the revenue just a few months after the month that it is produced. And we don't know what the price is going to be, and we don't know what the production is going to be. So we're estimating for a full year, and we don't know. We have no idea what the numbers are going to be. Just to give you an idea, we've had for this fiscal year, it's been from about a little over $1 million to maybe 1.4 million a month. So not a huge spread. I think it ended up being about a $350,000 spread between the highest and lowest, which isn't huge. But if production and price both tank at the same time and we don't see it coming, it could throw our numbers way off, or they could be way better than we thought, and we could have a huge cash carryover. So it just makes it a lot harder to budget for. It's a lot more of a guess than it used to be prior to Senate File 60, but that's kind of how the revenues are going to work this year. And in the future with Senate File 60, it's going to be a lot more of a guess, and we could be way off. And that's why it's important to keep some money in reserves in case we do end up tanking and not anticipating it.
Lovely.
Yeah. So, but we have good reserves. So that's a good thing. At least we don't have.
Start in March, some of those hearings last year, those workshops. I thought we started some in March.
Yes, we started really early. That was before the budget information was even out. So if you look at this schedule, I am scheduled to get the worksheets out to the departments Monday, March 27th. And that's when they actually get their payroll information. HR does the payroll budget information, and they budget for all of the step increases and anything that they're aware of that's coming up. They do that payroll projection based on the actual employees there. Obviously, it varies if you have turnover or anything like that. But they do that projection. And so I got a lot of phone calls with panicking because they didn't even have their budgets yet when they had to meet with the commission and explain their budget amounts. Well, they don't even know what they are because they haven't even gotten those spreadsheets from HR showing them their payroll numbers. And they hadn't gotten the budget worksheets from me yet. So I felt like that was premature. If you do want to have one on May 2nd, following the meeting, we could certainly do that. If we do keep the request forms due April 24th, and I have them due, that was the filing. So I have them due April 21st, which only gives me until Monday to get that in by 5 for the commissioner meeting for the packet. I could potentially get some I usually don't have comparative information for that meeting, but I could potentially work on that later in the week. Obviously, it wouldn't be in the packet, but it is just a workshop. So it wouldn't have to be in the packet because it's not actually part of the commissioner meeting if you would like to have one that early. Were you thinking having them just after the meetings then, or were you thinking like once a week? You did mention that there were
So
5 weeks in May. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you were implying we
it
should have
looks
5
like
meetings.
You were just talking about back to April 21st. You got that right?
April 21st is when all of the budget information is due to me.
Right, and then that whole next week is available because we don't meet that week.
Right.
You were saying you had to have it in by.
I was
Monday,
saying
the
I have to
24th?
have it in by Monday to get it in your packet for the
Oh, I see. what
for
you're
the
saying.
May 2nd meeting.
Yeah.
So what I'm
The
saying
newspaper
is
issue, I should have known. Got
I'm
it.
not going to have, I won't have any
Much time,
comparative
yeah.
information for you to get into the packet, but I could work on it later that week. I just have their due Friday, and by Monday at 5, I have to compile it all and get it to you. And that is simply just a list of everyone's requests. So it doesn't take me, I mean, obviously I'm only giving myself a day to do it. But then you're still calling people, hey, I didn't get your request. Did you send it? Where is it? So, I mean, you're dealing with that too. So, I know I can't have
Easier
comparative
for
information by
your
then.
Standpoint, if we pushed the workshop, maybe not on the second, but the following meeting or even the following week to give you more time for comparables?
Either one, I can get you comparables before the workshop. They just won't be a week before the workshop.
I don't know. In my experience, commissioners, I think Bonnie's right. If this gets drug out over multiple months, it's impossible and it's exhausting to even remember what to keep up with or how to keep up with it. If you start too early, you don't have enough projections in.
Mhm.
There's due dates for the, department heads and county core, I guess, to have, their budgets in. The question is, do you want all the outside agencies and component units to come present? Personally, as a new commissioner, I feel like, yeah, they should. If it's an easy one or if it's not a big request, then we just move along through. But I think it would be beneficial as a newbie to kind of go through the whole process, but try and do it relatively quickly within, I don't want it to be rushed. I don't mean it to sound like that, but strategically where we can kind of hash through it, in a month or so would be ideal.
If we get out of here by 10 PM, shouldn't be a problem.
Well, and another,
Felt like 2 years ago.
something that we've also done in the past is, we've cut off the meeting at noon, and that way I can schedule the meetings with these outside agencies, component units, departments. I can get the schedule out and just plan on having it at 1:30 and 1:30 to 5 and know that we're cutting off the meeting at that point in time. So if it's something that can wait, it gets pushed to the next meeting. That's just another thing that we've done in the past. I don't know if that would be something you're interested in doing. Or we can have them on other days. They don't necessarily have to follow the meetings. I'm open to anything you want to do.
In the past, has it been, let's just say on May 2nd, we start at 1:30, we got till 5 o'clock. The elected officials take that whole time? Does it vary on, what they have coming in, or could you do that one day?
The elected
Department heads one
officials
day?
wouldn't take that long.
Pretty straightforward. So could you do both of those in one meeting and then
yeah.
save the other meeting for?
If you have a whole afternoon to do it, yeah, you could do department heads and elected officials. Cause you have to think like Gene's over multiple of them. You have department heads that are over more than one department. So you can kind of make those ones longer than just someone over one department, but not 10 minutes apiece
Okay.
for each department.
Well, it's just a suggestion, commissioners, but my take on it or opinion would be to have workshops, as Bonnie pointed out. We'll do a cutoff in the month of May for our meetings to be done at noon. And if we have to push other items of business into the month of June, then so be it. And then utilize those afternoons from 1:30 to 5. That way Island gets lunch. But we can host budget workshops, start with the elected officials and department heads, and then the following meeting would be for outside agencies and component units. It's just a suggestion. That does give us an extra couple weeks if need be, given the 5 weeks.
Do you want to start with department heads and elected officials, or do you want to go with what Mary suggested and meet with the ones that are requesting more first?
I just said, maybe we don't have to meet with all the component units, maybe the ones that have over 250,000.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
Then elected should go first.
Okay, so you're thinking, okay. I thought you meant the order you wanted to meet with them was the higher ones first, but no. Okay, so we want to do department heads and electeds. It actually helps doing it this way because then I can actually tell people save the date.
Yeah.
Because before we've had actually a couple and some of them might have to be pushed if they're not available that date to a different one. Is that okay if I?
Yeah, that's kind of why we do have a couple extra weeks that month, so.
Okay,
it doesn't
so
work out for all, but I just don't want it to, go from April into May into June and we're all confused and burn out. It's a lot easier if it's all fresh and you're just handling through.
right. Okay, so department heads and elected officials on May 2nd.
That's one opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but good with that. Okay, May 2nd, 1:30 to 5. Rob, you went quiet on me. You got experience in this field.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my only concern, and Bonnie is much more adept at this than I am, but in looking at the calendar that was presented at our last meeting of what was done in the last fiscal year, there were several more workshops that were done. Now, I personally don't believe that we need as many as what there were, but I would be just a little bit scared about starting a little bit too late. So I just want to understand a little bit for myself. If we start on the 2nd, are you then planning on not doing the next set of meetings until after our meeting on the 16th? Or are you planning on meeting on the 9th also, that following Tuesday? What are your?
Originally, my thought was you would start on the 2nd with the elected officials and department heads. You would then on the 16th have component units and outside agencies. If we can't come, to final decisions in either of those, then we still have 3 weeks following that meeting, or I guess 2 more weeks, excuse me,
Can't do them all
Um,
today, it's too-
to make any
Yeah.
adjustments or have any further
It
follow.
takes quite a long time to do those agencies.
Sure.
In my experience in the past, it's taken quite a bit of time,
If you're,
especially with some of them.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. If you're only doing the ones that are over 250,000 though, that is not very much of them. And I don't know if the rest of you are in agreement that you should only meet with the ones that are 250,000 or more, but a lot of them, we have a lot of really little ones.
Yeah.
The outside agencies.
And I took from the chairman's discussion earlier that you thought that we should meet with everyone. Or did I misunderstand that?
No,
Okay.
that's how I feel.
Because if
Yeah.
we're going to meet with everyone, it's, those smaller agencies, even though they're smaller budgets in there, generally they go fairly quickly. There are still a lot of them and it takes time to do those in a day. I'm just afraid 2 days wouldn't be enough to do that. So, and we're still fine, like you say, we would still have the meeting the 6th of June. That would give us a 3rd meeting. And if we had to have a special meeting, we could do that. I don't have any problem with that. I think we can get through it in doing it that way. I just think we need to be aware, that's all.
So we,
Go ahead, Juan.
sorry, I keep interrupting. We could do the bigger ones, on the following the 2nd meeting. For the 2nd budget workshop, which follows the 2nd meeting in May, we could do the bigger ones, which is going to be your component units. All of the component units have over 250,000. And then I can just pick the ones that are the higher ones and kind of just split them evenly. The outside agencies do the higher ones and then do the ones that have the smallest budgets at the workshop, the first workshop in June, following the first meeting in June. And then we can have wrap up after the 2nd meeting in June, just we usually have a short budget workshop following the 2nd commissioner meeting in June, just to wrap up. I just mention any changes that have taken place in the past 2 weeks and then we have that, the hearing 2 days later.
I like that concept because we do have the larger expenditures in front of us in that meeting in doing it that way.
Okay,
If we did that on the 16th, and so that would just be my input. So we would just do the elected officials and department heads on the 2nd. On the 16th, we would do the larger agencies at that point and work our way down, as you said. So that's kind of where I would lean.
Yeah, because I don't think we're not gonna be able to get through them in a day anyway. You're not gonna have everyone present their budgets and we move on and all as well. So it's gonna take some follow-up, no doubt. So does that fit your schedule? If we do after the meetings for May and June, I guess, to sort through them?
Yeah,
Does that answer
no
your
problem with that.
questions, or we
So-
just talk in circles? and-
no, this is perfect. This is
Okay.
exactly what I wanted. And this way I can I can kind of find out who's going to meet on what days based on their previous requests, because usually they're not significantly different. All the component units will be meeting that, because all of the component units are substantial. So all of them will be on the 16th, and then the bigger outside agencies will be on the 16th as well. And then the smaller outside agencies will be following that first meeting in June. And then the 2nd meeting in June, we can just have wrap up. And I think I think we can fit them all in between 1:30 and 5 for those 3 meetings.
Okay.
So I don't think that'll be a problem. So that definitely answers that question. That is very helpful. So what dates and times would you like to have a budget workshop? And we answered that one. We answered that one. And we answered that one.
Is that June 6th and 21st, or what are the dates in June?
It'd be the 20th, because the 22nd is the Thursday.
6th and 20th.
6th, 20th. Okay, that's all the questions I had on the calendar. And just some notes that I took from the discussion we had at the last meeting. Commissioner Slaughter wanted to start the process earlier. Are you happy with this
Yeah,
schedule and how this is working?
I not necessarily wanted to start earlier. I just wanted to make sure that we had enough time.
Okay.
As I stated, I think we can do it. If we do it efficiently, I think we can do it quicker than what has been done in the past. When I looked at the schedule from last year, as I say, it looked like there were meetings starting in March all the way through, and I felt like that was certainly way too long potentially for meeting on
Well, at
that.
least we did that because the year before we got all piled up.
They actually started in November, I think, is when we started the budget workshops. Not meeting with people, but we were having budget workshops
One of the things
really early.
that's going to affect this, as you say, Senate File 60, we're never going to have a good revenue number.
No,
So we can work off of a best guess early in the year. And that's going to be as good as what our guess is going to be on the 15th of July. So, where in the past, we waited for those numbers and we knew exactly what it was going to be. We're going to be guessing regardless. I mean, I guess we can wait and see what the prices of commodities are up until a later point in time, but
yeah, we might
It's
have
not gonna be
one
very
more
efficient.
month to go off of, but that's it. It's
And
not gonna
that's
make a
not gonna
huge
help us.
difference.
no, you still have those other months that are coming in after the budget process that are certainly, as Bonnie described. I mean, if we see a huge increase in production or price or a decrease, our budget means nothing at that point. Basically, we're just reacting. So
Well, we have a good reserve, so I know it's not gonna be off $23 million, so we're okay.
I think honestly, it'll be up with the oil and gas and the Trona. The oil and
It's-
gas is, they've got 6 wells they're starting to put online if it ever quit snowing at Wamsutter. That's supposed to be a $300 million project. And I've reached out to them. I went to their presentation at Wamsutter, but I've reached out to have them come present here too.
yeah, no, in tracking the numbers as I've done in the past, I've started doing a little bit of that, and I've talked to the assessor. I think he believes we're going to see a slight increase in valuation, but once again, it's all speculation at this point. So.
What other direction do you need, Bonnie?
Okay, so yes, let's move on to the form. Sorry, that took a really long time. So the form, so I included the form from last year, and Commissioner Shanefield had mentioned reviewing this form, especially for those of you that are new, to see if you wanted to make any changes. So I want to emphasize that this form, the sole purpose of it is for you to make budget decisions. So the information that you are requesting in this form, the only thing that needs to be in here is what is going to be used to make your budget decisions. Nothing else needs to be included in this form. There's nothing state statute on this form. This is completely 100% up to you, and it's to make your decisions. This form is only filled out by the outside agencies and component units. The departments and elected officials, they all have access to our system, our Munis system, and they put their budgets into the Munis system directly. So I just extract that information from the system after they input that information in there. So they don't fill out these forms. It's just the outside agencies and the component units that fill out this form. So I hope you've had a chance to review it. And if you have any changes you would like to make this form, if you want to add things, if you want to take off things, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Toman.
I would state that Lloyd and I were on a committee. Lloyd is very detailed, and I was the person that said, get to the point. And so as a result, we have a combination, which I think could be streamlined a bit more. I don't know. What do you feel about parts of this form?
Well, I'm a numbers person, so personally, I like the numbers, not the words. My focus is more on the balance sheet numbers, the income statement numbers, and the days cash on hand numbers. I like to look at the numbers, but I may make budget decisions differently than you do, and you're the ones making the decisions. So
I think a lot of the budgets come in the same every year. So the numbers are important, and maybe their mission, what they do just for orientation, but then maybe streamline to the point of what are you anticipating is going to be different than last year and why, or something like that is our verbal thing instead of asking, because this had a lot of COVID comparisons, so that could definitely be taken out.
okay.
Didn't you, it asked, how'd you spend your COVID money, and did you get some? And I don't think
Right.
that is relevant this year, is it? because we're through that stage.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Rob could look at it with you or somebody. I definitely think it could be streamlined down to a couple of basic questions and the numbers thing. Because it's designed to help us, but how much of this do you want to read through for? How many entities do we have now? 50,
lot.
60?
We have about 50 that submit requests, but that includes departments and elected officials. So you don't get 50 of these, but yeah, there's probably 30 or
Right, it
so.
takes a lot of time to read through all of them, but I thought it was helpful that you did the spreadsheet where the outside entities, you kind of did that spreadsheet so we could see them all. What'd you get last year? What'd you get this year? And you could look at compared to each other, even though we can't budget that way, it still gives you a perspective, I think. I don't know how hard that was to do that, but where you can see all those outside entities on one sheet, what they got last year, what they want this year.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Slaughter.
I agree with Commissioner Tolman with respect to that. When I've typically looked at our budget in the past as treasurer, what I did was I pulled up the prior year and the current year and looked at what was being done in that period of time. I'm more of a numbers person like Bonnie is. I look at this form and there's a lot of information there that I don't really care about as a commissioner. Maybe I should, and maybe I'll learn that I need to. I guess I would ask, what type of feedback have you had from the entities? Did they fight this form? Did they think it was a good form? What was their feeling with respect to it?
I think there was a lot of confusion, but that was because it was so different. I don't know that they didn't like it because I think most of the people filling this out aren't numbers people. So I don't think that was the issue. There were just a lot of questions and a lot of confusion because it was so different from the year before.
Yeah.
But just
I
that was the feedback I got. I got a lot of phone calls asking me what a lot of the stuff meant or.
my mind, I'm a keep it simple, stupid person. And I just, for me, if the agencies would provide us with what their prior year's allocation was, what their new request is, and then the reasons why it's different than what it is, we can make virtually all the decision we need to off of those numbers, I think. Then we can ask questions off of that if there are other questions. But like I say, a lot of this information to me is not necessary.
It's important. It's just not necessary for you making your budget decisions.
Exactly.
And this form is to
And
make the
there's
budget
good
decisions.
information there, and certainly you can use that. Some people may choose to use some of this. I just don't.
Well, maybe our new commissioners could see if there are questions on there that you want kept because it would help you understand better. Whereas the two of us have done it and we just want to get to the bottom line. So whatever you.
I was used to the old form just with, another board that I served on, which I felt like was very long. I think it was 7 pages, but it was pretty straightforward. It was more numbers driven. I understand, the tweak that this form does, but it seems like a lot of unnecessary information. So I have to agree. I mean, I think you don't want to get it to the point where they're just submitting what they want and off they go. I mean, we want to know how much is in reserves and the balance sheet and all that. But, I think there is a couple key pieces here, like the Sweetwater County Assistance section. I think some of that's, some interesting information that may help with some of these decision processes. But as far as some of these, explain the need for this service or program, I don't think we really need to get into all that. So I think it can be simplified a little bit, but not to the point where it's just a basic ask. And this is what we had last year, and this is how much we want this year. I think it needs to be, well thought out and defined so that we can be informed, because it's the taxpayers' dollars and it should be something that's taken seriously and not just a rushed submission. So I agree, but any thoughts?
Chairman, I'm torn on it. There's a such thing as too much information. We can overwhelm ourselves with data, but on the other hand, I'm not adverse to these organizations coming in and telling us why they exist. They can't just justify themselves as, well, you gave me money last year, so you should give me that plus 10% this year. As a new commissioner, I don't know what some of these organizations do to benefit the community and why it's justified to spend taxpayer money supporting them. So we need at least the minimal amount of questions in there that get that answer from them. So like I said, I'm torn. Some of this information is important, especially things like explain the need for this service or program. If their only answer is, well, you gave me money last year, then we don't need that service or program. I want them, and if that just means them coming in front of us to tell us versus having it on a forum, I'm okay with that too. But I do think we need to hold their feet to the fire as to why we're investing public money into their entities.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I felt with, I think everyone should come present. I mean, I don't think just filling out a form guarantees you money every year. I think you need to be held accountable and answer as to why you need that fund. So I agree. Does that give you any direction or
A little bit. So what I've gotten so far is,
keep it simple,
obviously,
stupid, numbers, a
well,
little bit of explanation?
on the first page, we have, obviously the name of the organization and just the contact information, amount of funding requested from Sweetwater County for the current year, and the amount of the award last year and the percentage increase, decrease. So keep that all there. And then as Commissioner Slaughter and Commissioner Toman mentioned, an explanation of why we're having this increase or decrease. Did I understand that correctly? So add that in there. And then it sounds like we can remove some of this, but keep some of it. I'm a little unclear what to do there. I know I had a lot of questions about number 2. Please list all of the services or programs your organization provides, the amount of your funding request you will use for the specified service program, and the measurable goals outcomes. The reason that confused people is because we have spaces for 4 of them, and not everyone does 4 things. So they were just confused on how to fill that out. Because you have the museum and they're having to come up with, they're trying to break it down and they just don't know how to break it down. So I got a lot of questions on that last year. So I don't know if that's something we should just still have on there, but just have one and they can list more than one and not have to break it up.
I think that might happen. Just had them, they could listen. The reason this came about was because like YWCA, the
Mhm.
only service that they have to provide is a domestic violence shelter, or it's the only one in the county. So that makes that thing unique, that we should fund that, but maybe we don't have to do all the other things that they're doing.
Right. That's what triggered it to be
That's what
set up
triggered
this way,
that,
but
but-
most organizations are not set up like
Right,
that.
so maybe you could just do it under one and list them, just say list them and which one is required by law, for example. Which one of these services is required by law? Title 25, for the hospital, required by law, or
Okay.
YWCA. I don't know, is it
There's-
domestic violence required, or is just a unique thing that they have?
No, not statutory.
Oh,
Very, 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 very little is
well,
required by law.
statutorily or unique service or something like that, maybe. List your services and note which ones are unique to the county or statutorily required.
I think we do have one that asks.
Yeah, and I like that. It's what services does your organization provide in the county that no other organization provides? Because there is a lot
Yep.
of redundancy.
Right.
And I think that's something we certainly want to know.
That's number 3 on there. So definitely keep that one.
I would think that's extremely important.
Okay. And then maybe,
I think 4 could go out now. I mean,
I don't know how you answer 4, I mean, it's all
like,
speculation.
if you cut me 10%, I'm gonna have to lay 3 people off. That was what the purpose of it was, but that's the year we cut everybody 20%. I don't think that question even needs to be in there now, maybe.
okay, it was more of a, well, it actually, I remember Roy wanted me to put in there, please focus on services rather than the direct number of staff affected. It was more, say, I'll have to reduce this program. I'd have to eliminate this program, or I could only serve this many people instead of this many people. It was more that kind of a question, but absolutely, we can eliminate it if you would like to.
Problem with that is it's one thing to have an idea in place as to what you'll do. And then in reality, what actually takes place may be far different than that. So I don't know.
Right.
That's just my thinking with respect to that. Maybe it's a little cynicism, but I just, that one would be a difficult one for me because I think we're working in a very dynamic environment and everything that happens could affect how you're going to potentially do that if there were a 10% reduction or 30%.
Questions 4, 5, and 6 maybe could be eliminated. I don't know. It's kind of hard to answer some of those. You got to dig through your books to get an answer. Different kinds of programs provide different kind of service, so it isn't even applicable.
Okay, so you want to eliminate 4, 5, and 6?
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Chairman, I kind of think 5 might be a little important. They're not serving. How useful was that information when you were doing the budget last year now?
I think that question stemmed from one of the organizations that we provided funding to. They only served 7 people. And
Boys and Girls Club or whatever, yeah.
so that's why that question got put in there. And there was some differing of opinion because they only served 7 residents of Sweetwater County. So that's why that was in there. I'm not saying you have to keep it or you don't need to keep it, but I'm just explaining why that question was in there. And if you want me to remove it, I would be happy to. And if you want me to keep it in there, I'd be happy to do that as well.
I'm good with removing 4, 5, 6.
Is that the consensus? Okay.
But it's a good question to ask them when they do come in, the outside entities, totally the outside ones, if they're only serving 3 kids, or
Oh, I think
whatever.
we can certainly ask them of that when they come in.
Or I can keep it in the form. Do you want me to keep it in the form?
That's,
It's not applicable to most of them, but I don't know.
no, but if they are only serving 7 people, it's.
And some of them have no idea. Some of them don't know how many people they've served.
If we're gonna change the form, why don't a couple of us, I mean, I hate to do this every year where it's a new form and a new form and a new form and it just gets confusing, but why don't a couple of us get together and make some tweaks with Bonnie that we can send out to everyone on this board to see if it satisfies all of our needs relatively quick so that we don't have to go through all 29 items today and
Okay.
try and give you yay or nay, or, I mean, there's,
Well, I think if we simplify, no one will complain. I mean, if you cut something.
Yes. Why don't we, here's the thought. Why don't I just make the changes we've made so far on here and I'll put it in edit mode and that way you can see what I've changed. You know how it crosses it out if you put it in edit mode. And then you can let me know what else you want to remove individually and I can put it in edit mode and cross it out. And if a different commissioner disagrees, then they can let me know and I can put it back in. Does that work? And it can kind of be an evolving thing. These aren't scheduled to go out for about another month. So we have a few weeks to get this finalized. So let's plan on doing that. And we can move on because this is taking a lot longer than I anticipated.
It's Keaton's fault.
I'm trying.
Okay, I think that's everything for the budget. Can we move on to the audit schedule?
Yes.
Okay, so I've provided the audit schedule. I spoke with Stephanie, the partner in charge of our audit about this. This is fine with her team. She doesn't see any issues with this at all. So she got this on her calendar. I wanted to make sure you were okay with it. If you have any problems with it, please let me know. But before I forget, I do want to mention, we had a 3-year contract previously with the auditors and our contract has expired with this last audit that they just recently completed. And Stephanie was asking if we wanted to sign another 3-year contract with them so that they would be our auditors again for the next 3 audit years. Is that something that you would be interested in doing?
I think so. I mean, are you happy with McGee, Hearn and Pines?
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I haven't had any problems with them. And it's hard to switch auditing firms because then you're getting all new people and
What, I mean, is it a proposal they would submit as far as, I mean, I would assume rates are going to change over the different 3-year
yes.
terms.
Last year, what did they go up? I think it was low 80 something thousand to start, then 85,000, then upper 80s for the 3 years. So they went up each year for a couple $1,000s.
Okay.
So I would anticipate probably this year, maybe 90-ish with inflation and
We don't have to bid it though or anything, do we?
no, we don't have to. We're not required to go out to bid.
Well, I'd be open if they want to submit a proposal for us to review. We can take
Okay.
it up as a agenda item, maybe at next couple meetings.
Okay,
It's not a rush right now.
it is not a rush. I can let Stephanie know and when she gets something prepared for me, then I can get it on the next agenda.
Okay.
And if you want, we can try to negotiate the price if you want to talk them down. I think that's what happened last time. I think we talked her
Like
down a
style.
little bit. So yeah, so I will let Stephanie know that she can move forward with preparing that 3-year contract. Is everyone in agreement on that?
Yep.
All right, and then did anyone have any issues with the audit schedule, or is everyone fine with all the dates on this?
You're the one that has to do all the work, so I don't know, you can tell us.
So just FYI, it is due to the state by the end of the year. You are given an automatic 1-month extension. So you actually have until January 31st to get it done and turned into the state. So that's why we historically have been presenting this at the last meeting in December, and we get that finalized usually in December and try to get it out to the state by the end of December. I think this year it took us a little bit longer to get that final. So we got it out in January. But yeah,
Good
that's
to me.
where we are. It's a long, hard process, and it's hard to meet those deadlines.
Yeah, that's more in your field than ours, so we support your effort there.
Okay, if you are okay with the schedule, we will move forward with the schedule. And let's see, I was hoping Commissioner Shanefield would be, let's bounce back to the budget for just a minute here. And I don't know if any of you had a chance to talk to Commissioner Shanefield. I kind of skipped over her comments from last time just because she wasn't here. So a couple of things she said was review the budget request form, which we did. She said the budget workshops didn't flow together. I wasn't sure if you were aware of what she was saying on that, or what maybe I'll email her about that one. And then also she wanted a running total for the bottom line. And I don't know, I guess Commissioner Tolman, you're the only one here from the remembers from last year. I did that every workshop. So I'm not sure exactly what she was referring to. So maybe I can ask her on that too.
I would
If
just
you,
follow up. I didn't have any communication with her about.
Okay.
that, so I'm not sure.
all right, maybe I'll ask her about that and see if she wants something changed. And for any of this, going through this process, if there's anything else you want, if you want different budget reports, even throughout the year, I send out the monthly budget reports. That format was requested by a commissioner who's no longer a commissioner. So if you want to see different information, I can run the budget reports in so many different ways. And I'm happy to provide you with anything you want. So please let me know if there's anything that I'm not providing you that you would like to see. I'd be happy to do it if I know what you want.
Okay,
So
great.
that is all I have for you. So if you have any other questions or want any other information, I'd be happy to get that for you or answer any questions.
That's all I've got, commissioners. Thanks,
you.
Bonnie. I
Hey.
know that's kind of a grueling process. Hopefully the budget's a little smoother, but.
I hope so. I hope so. It was a very long
It's a
process
very
last
important
year.
topic, so I know.
It
it's kind of
is.
painful
It
to Get
is.
through some of these changes, but it's probably the most important thing that we do up here, so I don't want to rush through it. Appreciate you bringing
Right.
it ahead of time for us to start planning.
And I think our revenues will be good next year, and that actually makes the process a lot easier when the
Yeah.
numbers are good and we have money to go around. So I plan on it being a good budget year. So hopefully it will be. All right. Well,
Great.
thank you. I
Thank you.
apologize that went really long.
Yeah, they're gonna blame me anyway, so you're good.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. De Leon.
just point of order, if you did want to proceed with the specific purpose joint power agreement, Commissioner Shanefield said she was all right with that, and I could certainly speak to the 2 changes that were made.
Yeah, I was texting her there because I was hoping that she'd be coming back. It's not the case, so, well, she will be, but probably not in time. So I guess let's do that, commissioners. We'll go back to tab O, which is the amended Sweetwater County 2023 Specific Purpose Tax Joint Powers Board Joint Powers Agreement. And I guess I'll turn it over to you, Mr. De Leon, for the changes.
So you, as a board, approved this a couple meetings back. This was presented to the AG's office. There were 2 changes during that process. The first change through communication with the AG's office. The county sponsors 2 entities, the Jamestown Rio Vista Water and Sewer District and the North Sweetwater Water and Sewer District. And in the agreement, they were referred to when you refer to everybody collectively, including those entities, they were called agencies, participating agencies. They're not by definition an agency. So that was changed. They are now participating entities. So it was just being able to speak to everybody in proper, about each entity in proper terms. And so that was changed to identify that Jamestown, Rio Vista, and North Sweetwater are essentially just sponsored by the county, and that's their role in this process. The other change is in section 5. Section 5 is probably the most important section in a lot of senses. That's the financing section. There was a concern presented by Green River, which they wanted to clarify that if they chose not to bond, that would be their decision, not the Joint Power Board's decision. And so language was added to identify that each participating entity may individually determine if or how much it bonds. So that change was made at the request of Green River, and those are the two changes. So if you are amenable to these changes, you could make a motion to approve this joint powers agreement. This is going, I know, before the Green River board this evening. And the other thing you could do is a motion to appoint, since it has to be done in a timely fashion within 5 days of approval by the AG's office. You could make a motion to approve, and separately a motion, the agreement, and separately a motion to appoint a specific person to be on that board.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman.
is there any way to put into this to make them accountable for what they said they're going to spend the money on?
They are accountable, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Toman, they're accountable because the proposition that was
Oh, it's stated there.
stated what each one was going to spend it on, and you have to be consistent with that proposition.
So just so they don't get any money till we verify that they've done it according to that.
Well, they can have
Well, the
the,
joint powers group decides that, right?
yep, the joint powers will be doing the distribution, will be part of that distribution process. And they can have money in advance. Obviously, you need money before you can do a project. So they will have to, and that'll be part of the role of the joint power agreement, is to handle that distribution process.
Any other questions, commissioners? Did reach out to the mayor of Rock Springs and Green River, given the last approval that we then are now amending because they didn't approve. Rock Springs was on board. Green River had issues with some of the bond language that John just spoke to. I think there's a concern there since they don't anticipate or don't want to bond, whether or not they're held to some of the terms, the bonding. I don't know. It seems pretty straightforward to me. So this is more of just the creation of the Joint Powers Board. A lot of those other details, can be worked out as this clearly defines, I believe. I mean, the bonding is just an option. It's not saying you have to bond. There are also other financial options through this Joint Powers Board. So it seems pretty straightforward. Have any of you had any other feedback? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the amended Sweetwater County 2023 Specific Purpose Tax Joint Powers Board agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make that motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Second by Commissioner Tillman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Lauren has been our liaison to this group, so I would also, if you're all in agreement, entertain a motion to appoint Lauren to serve on the Joint Powers Board.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 She gets stuck on all kinds of stuff when she's not here.
That'll teach her.
Yeah. Okay. With that, commissioners, we are finally down to, actually, hang on before we go there. During lunch, I passed out a letter that was prepared by our HR office, which deals with our discussion from this morning in regards to the significant winter storm and what's the county planning on doing in the event of snow loads and things like that. So if you all have that and you're good with that, I'd like to get this approved. It goes into instructions on how to notify the county employees. Basically, we would authorize the HR office to send it out to department heads and elected officials. It cites the inclement weather county policy, again, the notification and a little bit more, as you'll see in that letter. So I mean, I can read that into record, or we can just approve, authorize signature, and go from there. Any thoughts? Do you guys have a chance to go through it?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards,
I'd move that we approve this letter and authorize signature.
got a motion to approve the letter prepared in regards to the significant winter storm, authorizing us as a board to sign. Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Mr. Chairman, the storm says it now won't arrive until 3:45, and on the radar map, you still can't see it.
It's coming.
Interesting, huh? Typical.
Okay, with that, we are now to the executive session portion. I've entertained a motion to enter into executive session to discuss personnel and legal. I'm not sure if we'll be taking action, but we'll inform after coming out.
I would so move.
Motion by Commissioner Tillman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.